Now let's move on to a story about how quick the media shine can fade in the brutal world of political reporting. Just 6 months ago, the new Teal independents were getting this type of treatment in Nine's newspapers. 6 months on, the women who plunged the Liberals into crisis. They were swept in on a fairy tale, triumphant, cashed-up community campaigns sent 6 impressive women to Canberra on platforms of action on climate and integrity and gender equity, stripping the Liberals' ranks of some of their best talent and plunging the party into an identity crisis. How lovely, what a fairy tale, challenging integrity. The journalist Lisa Vicenton just regurgitated a swath of Teal's slogans onto the pages of Australia's oldest masthead. A truly nauseating 6-month recap. But fast forward another 6 months, and are the Teals still getting a media protection racket? As MPs representing some of Australia's most affluent postcodes, the Teal independents are well accustomed to enjoying the finer things in life. And in the case of Kooyong MP Monique Ryan, that includes an aversion to flying with the plebs in economy. According to documents released under Freedom of Information, Ryan billed the taxpayers for 27 business class flights during her first year in office, adding up to about $28,000 worth of air travel, mostly on the single hour-long Melbourne to Canberra route. Now that's a disgustingly large bill for just flights, and the SMH was right to lodge that FOI request and show us exactly how wasteful these moral crusaders really are. And it's a lesson for even the most progressive of political operatives. You cannot control the media forever by simply uttering slogans. You actually need to deliver on those promises. Of course, none of this is against the rules, and plenty of pollies do this. But if you were expecting a new class of politician with the Teals, you would be sorely mistaken. Caleb, I think for Monique Ryan, it did start to go downhill as well from a media coverage point of view with this nasty court case with Sally Rugg. But the coverage that they were getting at the beginning of this new wave of progressive women who are going to shake things up, I think it's lost its lustre. I think the media has worked them out a little bit.
Thank God for that. I think you missed one of the best examples of the lauding of Monique Ryan by the Nine newspapers. I remember I was Chief of Staff at the Herald Sun at the time. I've walked in on a Saturday morning and I'm reading through The Age, as you have to do to make sure you've not missed any stories the opposition have picked up. And on the front page of Good Weekend, their weekend magazine, was Monique Ryan draped in some kind of teal curtain with the headline, "The Lady Vanquishes." And I nearly vomited him. It was 9 in the morning.
It's absurd.
I haven't even had a coffee yet. What the hell am I doing being faced with this? Thankfully, the shine is coming off. And this is the sort of stuff that every newspaper should be publishing, not just about Monique Ryan, it should be said, but all politicians, because we deserve to shine a light on this stuff. I mean, in what world can you justify on a 1-hour flight between Melbourne and Canberra flying business class? You know, I fly business class because I upgrade on points. I do it because I want to get a hot meal and a bigger seat. If Monique Ryan wants to trade in her points, that's her business, but she's doing it on our money. And the reason she's starting to come under scrutiny is because she has no power. As you said, made all these promises, but she's on the crossbench in a position where the government doesn't need her vote, so she's essentially no one. She's not been able to deliver anything she said she would, and so she comes under attack. She was never
going to be able to.
No.
And I think, Christy, maybe you want to weigh into this point, but I think some journalists should retrospectively be a little bit embarrassed by how gleefully they were reporting the victory of some of these Teals, as if this was going to revolutionise Canberra. And now we're seeing it was never going to be the case. They're just people, they're just politicians like anybody else, and they have the same flaws as all of us.
Well, they are just politicians, but they are largely redundant politicians now, with the rise of the Greens vote and the close relationship between the Greens and Senator Pocock. The Teal influence has been severely overestimated by the general media. The general excitement around the impact that the Teal agenda could have, and so far we don't know what that Teal agenda has turned out to be. It was an election campaign on a few slogans around integrity, transparency, listening to women and the environment. None of those things they've able to translate into actually making legislative impact or policies, because of course they refuse to acknowledge they're an actual party, yet complain about the staffing allocation. So if you registered as an actual party and got party status, you would get the appropriate staffing allocation, but they refuse to do that. I think the worst example of over-egging the omelette in terms of the Teal success in the media was the ABC Four Corners following around Monique Ryan in her electorate through her campaign, interviewing several of the well-heeled in a Hawthorn mansion, suggesting that Monique had worked very, very hard for every $2 donated by little old ladies who desperately wanted to see the back of Josh Frydenberg, when we know she began her campaign with $500,000 cheque from Homes of Court, which was completely omitted from ABC's reporting around how wonderful her fundraising achievements were.
Yeah, absolutely absurd. I think so many journalists were just so glad to see the coalition go that they lost themselves in the story a little bit, and it all just became a bit ridiculous.